The Bendu is one of the strangest beings that we encounter in the Star Wars galaxy, and that's saying something. He describes himself as the one in the middle. Because of this self-proclamation, many fans misunderstand this as proof of the concept of a Gray Jedi. George Lucas has made it clear from the very beginning, with many other storytellers at Lucasfilm carrying the flag. The Force is binary, light or dark, selfless, selfish, there is no middle path.
The core of the Force. I mean, you got the dark side, the light side. One is selfless, one is selfish. And you want to keep them in balance. What happens when you go to the dark side is it goes out of balance and then you...
George Lucas has said, the film is ultimately about the dark side and the light side, and those sides are designed around compassion and greed. Greed is the opposite of compassion. These are the two sides, the good force and the bad force. This quote is from a 1999 Time magazine interview. He has repeated these exact thoughts in many other places. He was always consistent in his message on the Force. Dave Filoni, who worked directly under George Lucas and may get the top job at Lucasfilm very soon, repeats this lesson. At a Star Wars Rebels panel, he said, "At the end, it's really about fundamentally becoming selfless more than selfish. When you're tempted by the dark side, you don't overcome it once. It is a constant. You can see the same lesson is still being carried forward." So what is the Bendu, and how does he come into all of this? The Bendu is an ancient entity representing an aspect of the Force itself. He described himself as the one in the middle. He's neither Jedi nor Sith. He exists outside of mortal constructs. Using words like he and lives aren't even entirely accurate. That's why I'm saying the Bendu instead of Bendu like it's his name. He was found on the remote planet Atollin, but the who is more important than the where, and likely the reason for the where. Jedi Knight Kanan Jarrus was at an all-time low. He had just lost a fight, he lost his vision, he feared losing his Padawan, who was also a combination of friend and son to him. He finds Bendu in the Rebels Season 3 premiere. The ancient being feels struggle within Kanan and teaches him to release fear and regret. I said the who is more important than the where because Bendu isn't constricted to the physical universe like Kanan is. He appears when and where he's needed. Kanan's loss of balance awakened the entity who helped him cope with his loss of physical vision and find a way to stay anchored in the light, anchored in balance. Kanan pleads with Bendu to choose a side in the galactic civil war. Bendu maintains neutrality, and in the episode 0 Hour, when things between the Rebel cell on Atollin and the Empire come to a head, Bendu has had enough. He unleashes a brutal storm that does not discriminate on targets, doing damage to both sides. He then vanishes. Whether he conjures the storm or actually becomes it is left open to interpretation. If you're getting value or entertainment out of any of my transmissions, it would mean a lot if you would join the Remnant and subscribe. Either way, the power of the storm and then the vanishing of Bendu's physical form reinforce his non-mortal nature. Dave Filoni, the creator of so many amazing Star Wars projects, including Rebels and therefore the Bendu himself, or itself, describes him as another branch of the tree that we explored in the Clone Wars, referring to the Mortis gods and the Force Priestesses. Bendu is more a concept, an embodiment of a primal aspect of the Force itself. He is not mortal, not a warrior, doesn't have a mortal constructed code. He's better defined as a mythological force of nature, a being beyond the War of the Rebellion and the Empire, or even the Jedi and the Sith. To lean further into fantasy, Filoni also draws a parallel between Bendu and Tom Bombadil from Tolkien's Lord of the Rings universe. Ancient, knowledgeable, and completely detached from mortal conflicts. Thankfully, Bendu does not constantly break into weird songs. Filoni's explanation ties the whole premise together. Bendu isn't himself or an endorsement of the concept of a Gray Jedi. He isn't a Jedi at all. He's a Force entity, part of the mythical pantheon that we've been introduced to over the years. His statement that he's in the middle is his perception, not an endorsement of using both light and dark sides of the Force. The dark side is corruption and would consume the user, like it did to Anakin Skywalker, who was one of the best of the Jedi. The idea of the Gray Jedi mostly comes from legends and video games. The games, even if the stories fit into canon, often allow players the flexibility to experiment with powers for more engaging gameplay and are not intended to undermine or change the lore that George Lucas himself originally established. Lucasfilm Story Group members such as Pablo Hidalgo and Matt Martin have been very blunt about Gray Jedi not being part of canon. Another quote, "There really is no such thing as a Gray Jedi in our stories." That one is from Martin. He clarifies, "If you mean a Force user who can use both light and dark without consequence, no. That's not how the Force works. The dark side corrupts." Once again, Martin. One aspect of this term that does muddy a lot of people's understanding is that the term had been used in the past to describe a Jedi, a light side Force user, who follows their own will and the will of the Force more so than the Jedi Council. I've heard this term in this way being applied to Qui-Gon Jinn as an obvious example of this. I was told that this term appears in the novelization of The Phantom Menace. It has been a bit of time since I read that particular novelization, but I do not remember it being in there, and I could not find anything online that reinforced that claim. Qui-Gon serves the living Force and embodies what we all believe a Jedi should be. But he does not follow the dogmatic, and at the time that we meet him in The Phantom Menace, lost guidance of the Jedi Council as much as they would like. The term Gray Jedi in this case meant only that, not that he also tapped into the dark side of the Force. I could not find any examples of this definition being used in canon either, and I defer to those who would be able to make the call. That is, George Lucas, Dave Filoni, Pablo Hidalgo, Matt Martin, and many others. I'm just going to interrupt for 1 second. Today's video is sponsored by me. Imperial Remnant now has a merch store, and it's not just designed specific to the channel. I'm working with a couple talented artists to bring you unique Star Wars themed designs. Check out the link in the description. Alright, back to the lore. Bendu is another example that the Force is vast and mysterious. It goes beyond Jedi and Sith. His existence does not undo the binary nature of the Force. Lucas, Filoni, and the other Lucasfilm Story Group members that I've been talking about have been clear and consistent in this point since the beginning. Bendu, along with the Force Priestesses and the Mortis gods, all serve a similar narrative role. They are physical embodiments of vast, abstract concepts. Balance, morality, life, death, the light, the dark, the living, and the cosmic force. These figures appear to our heroes, not necessarily because the Force literally needs to take a physical form, because Star Wars stories are largely told in a visual medium. By embodying more complex philosophies in avatars we can wrap our heads around, the audience, especially the younger members of the audience, can get a better handle on what would otherwise be complex and lengthy exposition dumps, making them intangible to many. They're all symbols. This video was spurred by a lot of comments on my video of 20 common misconceptions that I've been seeing. I'll link that in the description. Always feel free to comment, argue, discuss, or call me out, whatever. Please do it respectfully, especially when it comes to other commenters on my videos. I do my best to bring you well-researched and correct information. I'm sure I'll mess up along the way. I'm bound to get something wrong, but I'm confident that this isn't one of those cases. I say that with the utmost respect. To dive back into some more Star Wars lore, check out this transmission next.